Okay, so welcome back. My name is Austin Schutz. I'm a graduate student at the University of Alabama in political science and women's studies. And today, what I'm going to be doing is talking to you about finances in graduate school. And I'm not doing this to provide financial advice or like tell you how to budget. I am doing it to kind of illustrate what finances have looked like for me in graduate school, in the hopes that for those of you considering graduate school, it'll kind of give you more clarity about what you're getting into because departments are not always kind of forthcoming about what finances are going to look like in graduate school. And I don't think that in most cases this is anything like malicious. It's just simply that, you know, university professors, while they've been graduate students, they aren't necessarily they aren't graduate students anymore, and they aren't necessarily aware of what the life of a graduate student in their particular department looks like. Um, so, uh, that being said, um, let's talk about money. And I am just going to warn you right now, this is not going to be the cheeriest of conversations because graduate school finances are just not super great. If you want to see kind of those issues in terms of like a debate or in terms of like the morality of the kind of compensation that departments give, you can just look at what's happening at Columbia. Like, I'm at the University of Alabama, um, and even at Columbia, labor conditions are not good. It might be something that is expected of certain universities based on the reputation of where they are, but I promise you that the issues that I am experiencing at the University of Alabama are issues at just about every university because graduate departments are not paying a living wage. So, this is primarily geared towards PhD students and people considering getting a doctorate. I feel like the general expectation for master's students is usually that they're going to self fund um, and there isn't the same infrastructure in place for like giving people GA ships, for example. So to start, we have to talk about kind of what university stipends look like and where they come from. So at my university, what happens is every single department has a certain amount of graduate assistant lines. And there are kind of three kinds of graduate assistants. There are what are just called GAs. These people usually work at institutions on campus, doing jobs within those institutions. So, for example, like you might work at something like Crossroads at UA, which is an institution on campus that works on having dialogues between students to kind of promote mutual understanding. And the facilitators are often graduate students who are paid a stipend. There are graduate research assistants, so you are paid to work for a professor helping them with their research. And then there are graduate teaching assistantships. So in this case, you're kind of doing one of three things. You are helping a professor administer their class. This can include grading. This can include leading the occasional class. Oftentimes, this is a part of your development as an instructor. You will be a teaching assistant first. You will teach a couple of classes, get detailed feedback, and then you will start teaching on your own. So that's the next category: people who teach. At my university, in my department, political science, my PhD home department. This starts the second semester of your second year. You teach your first intro class. Um, And the other category in our department is people who do advising. Um, so where does the money come from? Departments are usually given a certain amount of lines and money by the university. So our university gives $1,500 a month per line about. It started, I think, $1,350 when I started here. It has increased to about $1,500. It might be a little more than that. I'm on a fellowship this year, so my finances look a bit different. But last time I was on a GTA ship, which was last year, was $1,500 a month pre-tax. So what does it look like post-tax? Looks about like that. You're losing about 10%, give or take, depending on where you are. So your real take-home pay per month is $1,350, which is not a ton, especially depending on what the living expenses look like where you are. In Tuscaloosa, it's just not much. And then departments can add on top of this, and at well-resourced universities, they do. At universities where professors have a lot more time for research, or where the university gets a lot of money from donors, or where getting research funds is a really big focus. So you have professors getting large grants. Although typically at our university, when people have gotten large grants, those go towards graduate research assistants. But regardless, some departments have money to add on top of this, while others do not. The department I am in does not have money to add on top of this. And unless you are at an elite university, which really are just universities that are really well resourced, because that makes it a lot easier to produce great research at a high volume. The stipend might look different, although if you look at Columbia, there are still a lot of issues with it. So you have your stipend, and then you have what does a month look like? That is the big question. Like, what do your expenses look like? So I'm going to talk about monthly expenses and then kind of semesterly expenses. So monthly expenses, you have rent, you have utilities, you have car insurance and rental insurance, you have gas, you have your cell phone, you have food, and then emergencies. And you will inevitably have emergencies come up. You might be like me, and your first year of graduate school, your laptop breaks, so you have to get another one, and then your transmission goes out, so you have to get a different car, and then your second year of graduate school, the laptop you just replaced the laptop with also breaks, so you have to get another laptop, or like you need a surgery, or you need to go to the dentist, and your university doesn't give you dental insurance. So, as you're going to see, emergencies are a whole thing. So, rent, a livable but not luxurious one-bedroom apartment in Tuscaloosa starts at about $650. You can reduce costs by having a roommate. I did not want one coming into graduate school because I have had a lot of roommates, and it is a lot nicer environment, in my opinion, to have your own space where you don't have to worry about people throwing parties at 2 o'clock on a random Thursday, so that you are well rested for your graduate program, or you can stay up and read. Utilities. Here, they're astronomical. I looked up what the average utilities were in Tuscaloosa, and it looked like they were going to be about the same as they were in Salt Lake. So I was paying between $100 and $120 a month for electricity, and then money on top of that for other utilities. Here, my average monthly electric bill in my current apartment, which is a 2-bedroom townhouse, very nice, have a partner, that makes things a lot easier financially. And but I didn't have that my first years of graduate school. Here is $252 a month, and I have set it so that I have like the regular monthly bill where the cost is the same every month. But I've had electric bills in other places as high as $350 a month. Yours will probably not be that high, but utilities are still a significant expense. And so I'm going to call them $250 a month for the purposes of this budget. That is electric, water, trash, etc. But not well, I guess I am going to include internet. So let's actually call that 300. Let's include internet in that. So you're going to have car and rental insurance most likely. Let's call that another $120 a month. I don't drive a ton, but I still have to fill up my gas tank about twice a month, which is about $50 a month for me. My cell phone bill is cheap. I pay $18 a month because I prepay a flip phone for the whole year. But most people are probably not going to do that. Most people need their smartphone. I have found it to be incredibly distracting and unenjoyable, so I do not have one. Food. So, what does a reasonable cost of food look like for a week? Well, my first year of graduate school, my budget was really tight because I wasn't anticipating getting a $380 electric bill in a month. So I lived off of sweet potatoes and instant mashed potatoes and like some vegetables. And so, I could spend $15 a week and like survive, but that is just not what you shouldn't do that. It's not enjoyable. Currently, I spend about $60 a week on groceries, and I probably spend like $30 a week eating out, maybe $40, so $100 a week, which is a lot. But let's just call this $60 a week. Let's say you're gonna eat out once a week and spend $50 a week on groceries. Most likely it's going to be more because you're going to have late nights on campus where you need to go to the snack machine to get an energy drink or whatever. But we're going to just call this $200 a month, which is probably an underestimate. So what's going to be immediately clear is that if we add all of this up, it already exceeds our stipend. And this is just the reality of graduate school, is that your living expenses will exceed your stipend. And there's a bunch of problems with this. And there's some underlying issues here too that we haven't talked about. And I want to talk about a big one involving rent. So most rental companies are not going to rent a place to you that is more than a third of your income. If it's more than a third, you'll need a cosigner. And wherever you are, it's going to be really unlikely that you will find a place for that cost that you can live in alone that is just okay, like livable. So if you are an international student, this will of course be an issue. If you are a student whose parents can't do this for you, or whatever relatives you might have, this is going to be an issue. And it is something that universities really, for the most part, do not provide good resources for. Some universities have on-campus apartments. That is wonderful. I wish ours did. It did not. My undergrad institution did. If that were something available to me, that would have made graduate school a lot more simple in terms of like finding housing. But it is not available in Tuscaloosa, and it is not available at a lot of universities. So housing is really complicated. There's a lot of issues with it. And your university might have an office where they will refer you to different apartment complexes. And our universities has not been helpful. And in large part, that is because, as a gay man in Tuscaloosa, there are some places in town that I just simply do not feel safe living. Like if an apartment is near Frat Row, I am just not going to live in it. Um, these are other kind of considerations with housing. Um, okay, so we have not gotten to emergencies. Our budget is already, um, you know, over our income. So emergencies, I've discussed this. Like, there's lots of stuff that pops up, and you just don't have the wiggle room to cover it. So how do you cover it? Well, you're just going to have to take out student loans, most likely. Like, your most likely situation doing a PhD is that every semester you will have to take out student loans. Um, so let's talk about semester costs now. One, you have college fees, and two, you have conferences. So college fees vary widely depending on where you are. At my university, it's been between $200 and $400 a semester, plus a parking pass, which I have not gotten in recent years with COVID. And the parking pass is $350 for the year, I think, so $175 a semester. But I've heard of universities where the fees are a whole month of your stipend, and they are not covered by your tuition waiver. Almost universally, I have never heard of anybody saying that their tuition waiver covers fees. I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen, but it's something to be aware of. It's probably not going to happen for you. And this is ridiculous. They know what they pay us. It doesn't make any sense that a tuition waiver would not also include your college fees, but universities are doing this anyways. I have no idea if it has something to do with federal law, but even if it does, universities should just take the L on this because they're making a lot of money off of graduate students, especially graduate students who are teaching for $1,500 a month. It's just a reality. I am going to put 500 here. I think it's a reasonable estimate for a lot of universities, but yours might be much higher. Conferences. So I think personally that you should be shooting for a conference every semester because they are really helpful in developing your work. And this is not as a first or second year graduate student. I think a conference a year, pre-comps is fine. But when you're done with comps, like I wish I could go to more conferences every single year. I wish I could go to 4 or 5. Because getting the feedback on papers, meeting people with similar research interests, it is really, really helpful in developing your own work. But conferences are really expensive. I put $800 here, so your fee to sign up for a conference is probably going to be pretty low as a graduate student. It's going to be anywhere from $25 to $75 in most cases. But most conferences are not going to be near you. This might be different if, say, you're in Washington, D.C., or Baltimore, or Philadelphia. You might be able to just drive to a lot of the conferences that you would normally go to. But if you're somewhere like the University of Alabama, you're going to have to find the cheapest Frontier ticket you can find, which might be like $300 round trip. You're going to have to pay the conference fee, so your $75. 75 is like really standard. I don't know why, it just is. And you're going to have to get a room. You're probably going to try and share it with like 6 other graduate students. It's going to be really crammed in. Or you're going to be lucky and you're going to have like 3 professors who are sharing a room, and they'll just say, okay, like bring a sleeping bag, sleep on the floor. And so there's some ways to save costs at conferences, but they're still really expensive. So yeah, $800 I think is a pretty good estimate for how much a conference will be to go for the weekend, get yourself a room, fly out there. Honestly, if you can stay at a motel near to the conference motel, that's usually best. The furthest I've stayed from one is about 2 miles, and I was able to do the walk every morning. Um, it was not through like the nicest of areas in Providence. Um, Sorry, Brown University, I'm not a fan of Providence. None of your streets have signs telling you which street you're on, but I was able to figure it out. Um, but I would say shoot for something within a mile of the conference hotel, motel, whatever. Okay. And obviously you don't have the money to cover this, right? Um, so that begs the question then, where do we get additional money to help fill in this gap? And you're not going to fill in the gap entirely during the school year. You just aren't. Um, there are several sources for this. Uh, One is departmental money. Another is what I'll label institutional money. And another is kind of research funds. So uh, so my department can't contribute towards a larger stipend, but they can contribute towards like half of a conference, and then our university picks up the other half of a conference. So one conference a year gets covered by my department and by the institution in tandem. Um, your university will also have funds elsewhere. So, like your international programs office might contribute money for you to go to an international conference, stuff like that. So, there's a lot of navigating that you have to do in order to find out where all the money is at your university, but it is worth doing. And I would say, your first year you should be paying attention to where people get money. Your second year you should really be researching where in your university money is available. Spend a couple hours, like 2 days a semester, figuring out where money is on your campus, and it will pay off in the long run. Um, and then professors oftentimes get like startup funds when they get hired, or they have like a yearly research budget from the university, and they will hire graduate students to be research assistants for them and help them with projects. So these are some ways to get some additional funds, but there are issues. And the major issue is that all of them involve reimbursement. I have spelled that wrong. I have spelled that very wrong. Reimbursement. All of them require reimbursement, and usually it takes like 2 months, 3 months to get your money. So if you have to pay for your conference up front, so you have that $800 conference, and 2 months later you'll get reimbursed. Well, if you put it on your credit card, you're going to have to pay the interest on it, or else, if it comes from your student loan money, like, you have more loan money on the balance. So you get reimbursed. It'll take a while to get it. These research funds. So how do you get hired by a professor? One, you have really similar or the same research interests. So it just makes the most sense for a professor to hire you for a research project. So if you are pre-comps, this is probably the scenario in which you get hired by a professor in order to work on a research project. Is you both have similar research orientations and interests, and there's a high likelihood that in the long term you will be doing projects together. In the long term being the course of your graduate program and maybe beyond. So that is one way. Another way is that you communicate with your department what your funding situation looks like in the summer. And when professors in the department say, hey, I need a graduate student to help me do some research, they'll look for someone. They might send out like an email saying like people in the department apply. And they might have suggestions for that professor, like, these 3 students need funding this summer. And so communicating with your department about your financial situation will help you get kind of those research opportunities. Um, but again, so I have done this, and I have also kind of run IT for some conferences, and by IT I mean this in the loosest sense, like moderating Zoom rooms. Um, and like they will pay you, but it'll take you a couple of months to get the money, um, which is not good. And sometimes, like, I've had professors pay me out of pocket and then I refund them with the money that the university gives me because it's taken so long for the university to get me the funds. Um, and so these are things that you have to think about. Universities and other institutions are not set up for the needs of graduate students. It is absurd that it would take so long, but this is the reality of how finances work in graduate school. So, uh, yes, shake the money tree, see what falls out. Sometimes you might get lucky. In the summer, departments usually have, oh, and this includes applying for grants. So you should look at what grants your university has available. You should look at fellowships. You should ask professors to nominate you for fellowships. This year, I am on a fellowship, and my stipend is 50% more than it was when I was teaching. So, like, it has been a huge um, quality of life improvement. And so, like, you really should be looking for those opportunities. You never know if you're going to get it. And if you're doing any kind of service work on campus, it just makes you even more likely to get it. So personally, I think that I got it because I was highly involved in helping to create a organization for queer and trans graduate students and professional students and non-traditional students on campus, and also like young staff on campus too. So, um, be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Um, Departments usually will have summer teaching. That summer teaching is usually distributed based on seniority, if there's like a limited number of spots. Our department historically has been able to give the people who have wanted summer teaching that chance, but with COVID, that changed. And most people who applied for summer teaching were the sections were made, but people never signed up. And that was just really unfortunate. COVID was a nightmare. Is terrible, but I mean, obviously the beginning was just not great. So, yeah. So all of this is to underscore that in a PhD program, finances are going to be an issue. They're not going to be pleasant to navigate unless you are in the fortunate situation of already being financially stable, or you are lucky enough to get into a university that provides a living wage, which is going to be very rare. I know of a university that seems like it provides a living wage. I'm not sure if it is. But I have heard, rumors of a $30,000 stipend at Hopkins. I don't know how far that goes in Baltimore, but the odds are you will not be getting a living wage. Your labor is really being exploited in graduate school. You're not being paid commensurate with the economic value that you're generating for the university, like not even close. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of it. I have another video on work-life balance, so I suggest watching that because it is really easy to get attached to the obligations that get generated by, say, being a graduate teaching assistant. And yes, like, you should care about your students, you should be providing resources, etc. you should care about your schoolwork. You should be dedicating a lot of time to it. If you have a second job, which a lot of graduate students do, like that generates its own obligations, family, friends, all of this. Um, and I will likely do a video in the future on teaching. But um, you always have to keep in mind, always, 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 and this is something that lots of professors have told me, that the university is making a killing off of your labor. Um, and so you really need to set firm boundaries. Um, so, I'm going to stop here. I hope that it's helpful for some people. Um, and I hope that, if you are in school right now, and you're about to go on winter break, that winter break is really enjoyable for you, that any holidays you celebrate are wonderful, that if you're doing any work over break, that it goes well. If you don't have a break, I hope that that time goes really well for you too. And I am sure that you will be hearing from me again very soon. Thank you.